good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to this STARS webinar. I'm Tony Schönenberger. I'm the Executive Chairman of STARS. STARS is a platform for dialogue to discuss developments which will impact the society as a whole, but particularly also our businesses in the next couple of years. Today, we have the great privilege to talk to Yen Tan. Yen, welcome. It's great to have you on this webinar.
Thanks, Tony, for having me.
Yen's executive career spans more than 30 years of senior level executive positions such as Vodafone, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, etc. Currently, Yen is a director of quite a few companies, institutions, foundations such as AMS OSRAM, OCBC Bank, Jardine Cycle, Callebaut, etc. And I'm very pleased, Yen is a member of the STARS Asia Advisory Panel. We have exactly 30 minutes of Q&A. If you have a question, please use the Q&A feature below and type in your questions. So Yen, I think we should start, and I have a couple of questions to you. Please tell me, first of all, about your own career, about challenges, maybe about milestones, achievements, and particularly about your learnings.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Tony. Certainly a pleasure for me to be part of this STARS webinar. And I would like this to be interactive, so feel free to ask me any questions there may be. So as you mentioned, Tony, I have over 3 decades of experience in the technology sector, HP, Oracle, SAS, and my last executive role was the president for Vodafone in Asia Pacific. So 3 years ago, I decided to leave my full-time corporate career to build a portfolio career of non-executive role. Those boards that you already mentioned are the independent, as an independent director. I also provide advisory service to private equity firms, namely TA Associates and EQT, and sit on their portfolio company boards and do due diligence for some of the deals that they do in Asia. So my advisory service also extends to corporate who leverage on my region network and also my contacts and executive knowledge for their growth in Asia Pacific. So I've enjoyed a fairly varied field of non-executive portfolio career and contributing in a very varied different fields. So happy to share my perspective on leadership and innovations in this webinar.
Thank you very much. Your board experience, coming back to that, and particularly looking back at the last 3 to 4 years, you know, pandemic, Ukraine war, etc. What disruptive developments did you not expect?
Yeah. So maybe, Tony, before I come to that, I think I didn't answer all of your question on the first one. You did ask me on what are the learnings, right? And I think it's important on my career learnings. I think very important in your career, and I'm sure many of the audience here are still, in the very active stage of building your career. I feel it's important to be embrace new experience, not to be too deliberate, and be flexible on new assignment that may be given to you. I always tell the young executive not always to look at promotion. The next job has to be a next level up. It could be a lateral move, but when you take calculated risks, you actually have significant professional growth and development, and that always help you in your career, right? I think the other aspect of the learnings I have in my executive career is really important to focus on building relationships, build your professional network, whether it's industry experts, mentors, and I think like being part of the STARS group, you get a different form of network amongst different leaders, and most importantly, across different regions. I think the only other thing I would say is build your own personal brand. right? Everybody represents something. What do you stand for? Whether it's a platform on LinkedIn or otherwise, people would appreciate what's your unique skill and strength that you bring to your professional career. Yeah, so that I thought I'll just wrap up on your first questions about the learnings from my long career. Yeah. So if
and
I
of
may
course,
come,
you are a prime example of a networked leader.
yeah, I enjoy. I think I'm generally a very curious person, so I enjoy different culture, and working in Asia Pacific. One of the challenges is, and to me is also exciting thing in Asia Pacific, is that you do deal with different culture, different geography. And my career has bring me from across Southeast Asia, of course, Singapore, that I'm very familiar with, to North Asia, to Asia Pacific in the Pacific region in Australia, China, India, of course. These are the big markets in Japan, and also working in American MNC and European boards before. I mean, currently, I do interact with very diverse geography and culture, and I actually enjoy that a lot. Yeah.
May I just add a question? Is it hard work, obviously, but is it also good luck?
Good luck?
Yes.
That's an interesting question, Tony. I definitely hard work, right? Because I think people don't realize that if just within Asia, there's a 13 hours time zone difference. So and especially you work with the headquarter, whether it's in the US or in the UK or in Europe, Asia always take the midnight shift. So you have to work fairly global timing. Yeah, and I'm pretty used to that. I think the important thing is, as in any leaders, to be successful, I think it's important for people to be open-minded, to embrace new thoughts on different culture, to be sensitive, especially and respect the geography practice and local practice. Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of hard work, but at the same time, a lot of learnings, I would say. Yeah. So Tony, just back to your second question that you asked, which is a very good question around what disruptive development that the board do not expect. I think the most obvious one that every one of us didn't expect was the COVID-19 pandemic. That really not just impact the personal well-being of people, but the COVID-19 pandemic also had a significant impact to the businesses around the world, disrupting supply chain, changing consumer behavior, and also to many companies to adopt remote work and also digital business models. I think that is probably the most obvious one. A few other emerging trends, disruptions in the recent years that we see is also the emergence of e-commerce. The growth of e-commerce has really disrupted traditional brick and mortar retail, forcing companies to adapt to online sales channels, and also it has also changed consumer preference, right? I think the other interesting one I just want to touch on is the rise of the gig economy. Right, with the gig economy, it disrupted the traditional way how you employ your people, right? But you also give new opportunities for freelancers, independent contractors, and also changing the way how companies hire and manage workers. Yeah, I think these are, and I'll touch a little bit on AI, but definitely advancement of AI is also something companies have to be cognizant about. It changed many ways. Many industries, whether it's manufacturing, transportation, finance, or healthcare. Yeah.
Talking about ChatGPT, what do you see? What kind of impact do you see for society and obviously for our businesses?
Yeah, I think just generally that's generative AI, right?
Yes.
But I think generally AI has a big change to the impact to the business. Take for example, customer service, right? AI-empowered chatbots, very often used, whether it's in the banks or retail shop, and virtual assistant. You can provide, to me, I see a lot of benefits coming out of that. 24/7 customer service, answering frequently asked questions, handling very basic inquiries. You free up your customer service agent to handle more complex issue. I think predictive AI also help in identifying patterns, predict future trends, your supply chain, inventory management. I think supply chain optimization, the AI algorithm has certainly helped many companies to look at the most efficient route for shipping and delivery and reducing costs and waste. And fraud detection. I'm on the banking board. We use a lot of AI to analyze financial data to detect fraudulent activity and also to predict and reduce the risk of financial loss. So just jumping on AI specifically that you asked, I think there's a big impact to how business are being run. I see more positive than negative, yeah.
If you look at all these challenges, obviously, are companies really ready for these disruptions?
Good question. I think it depends, right, on the company and the specific disruption. Some companies are probably more well prepared than others, while others may struggle to adapt. I think companies that are more proactive and forward thinking tend to be better equipped. So again, back to my experience on boards, the part about risk assessment, and I think with COVID-19, companies realize that you always have to look at potential threats, new trends, how to develop strategy to mitigate some of this risk, and how do you stay informed about industry trends and changes. What are emerging technologies? With COVID-19, actually the adoption of technology accelerated, some say 5-fold or 10-fold, but it's obviously, I think that definitely accelerated. I think the other thing is invest in innovation for company to be prepared and be flexible in your operations, your ability to adapt on all this disruption, and also foster a culture of adaptability within your organization. Will encourage risk-taking and also continuous learning, and also encourage innovation. Yeah.
I have a very provocative question to you, Jen.
Yeah.
Some people say in good times, you don't need any board members. In bad times, they are useless. How would you react on that?
Wow. I certainly, I don't fully agree, but I can see where this is coming from, the questions. Yeah, good times or bad times. And we see that whether it's, if I can start with the bad times, right? Economic downturn, the disruption of the pandemic, and frankly, even in good times where the economy is driving growth, to me, boards are there for corporate governance, right? And of course, beyond corporate governance, there's also the assessment of risk. So if you just look at boards, the 4 committee that's always there is nomination, because succession planning, you may have just appointed a new CEO. I was just recently on a panel, right? That most company, when they just appoint a new CEO, they forget about CEO succession. They think that the CEO is going to be around forever, but you never know what will happen, right? In these time and days. So whether it's succession planning, remuneration, audit, risk, if I mention some, and of course, corporate governance, it's a very critical part of the success of any good, well-run corporation. So in good or bad times, to me, whether you call it a board or otherwise, but I think some oversight from independent views is very important. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Now, coming back to maybe particular leadership questions, and STARS is actually a leadership platform, particularly also a succession planning platform, so to say. How would you say how to grow leaders? What is the best way to grow leaders of the next generation?
Yeah, if I can answer the questions from developing leaders, right? I think many organizations understand the importance of it, but it's whether they spend the time and energy on it is another question, because day to day there's always some fire to fight, some revenue to grow. But I'm glad to see that many of the companies that I'm on the board on do pay a lot of attention to that, because I think your strategy, your best next 3 or 5 years plan can only happen if you have good leaders to drive the growth and the business. So I think providing the opportunities for growth, giving the aspiring leaders the chance to develop their skills through either mentorship, coaching, training, challenging projects, and I know stars do a lot of that, is certainly a good start. And I think there's always learning and development. But I think another critical component is providing feedback and support, right? How do you constantly provide frank, candid feedback and support to your leaders, right? To look at not just giving them positive feedback, but also areas of improvement and how can they build on their strength. And also encourage, I mentioned before about risk-taking. I think how to embrace failure, right? Especially in the Asia culture, people are very afraid of sticking out if you fail, but that's where you learn, right? How do you take risks and try new things even if you fail? And when you learn from mistake, and that's how you develop resiliencies. So foster a culture of open communication, lead by example, and I think honest, transparent, respectful, provide demonstrating empathy, emotional intelligence, all these are quite important for developing leaders.
Many excellent leaders, chairmen, CEOs, etc. What really makes a good leader?
I think we definitely, first trait we always talk about is communication. We tend to underplay that, but communication is so critical for a good leader, having an excellent communication skill, because you have to convey your ideas, your vision very clearly, and not many leaders are very good at this. Listen actively, right? The listening skill is as important as communicating skill. And to me, a good leader with integrity, because I always believe that whether you're honest, transparent, trustworthy, you must have a moral compass in whatever you do, whether it's in outside of work or at work. Empathy. So to me, empathy, a high degree of empathy, you're able to understand your team's perspective, the needs and concerns, and provide the support and guidance. When I hire for team leader, I also look at people who, I like to use the term people builder. Someone who is able to build a cohesive, effective team, high EQ, emotional intelligence, the high level of empathy, as I mentioned before. To me, these are being adaptable, because like I say, there's a lot of change, able to navigate uncertainty and be flexible and open-minded. So I'm mentioning a few traits here, but I think no surprise to, I'm sure, many of you, and you can't have all of that. So most organizations will prioritize what is important. And I think when I mentioned this at a recent panel, most companies, when we look at succession plan or when we hire, we tend to look at a rear view mirror and look at what we didn't have and what we need. We don't look at forward next 5 years as the company grow in the next phase. What are the skills we are looking for in the next CEO, right? Whether CEO or the next C-level candidates. Yeah, I think that's, to me, is an important traits when you look at succession planning. Yeah.
Elaborate a little bit on that, namely, how do you see the role of leadership evolving in the coming years? I mean, looking at all the challenges we just talked about.
Yeah, there's a lot more emphasis, and I think maybe because of the Generation Z that's coming on, a lot more emphasis on empathy and emotional intelligence of a leadership role. and especially with the increasing importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Leaders need to demonstrate a high degree of empathy and emotional intelligence to build a strong relationship across the work environment. I see a lot of focus, more focus. Of course, there was always focus on sustainability and social responsibility. Organization become more aware of the impact they will have on the environment and the society. So prioritizing sustainability, social responsibility for any leaders is important. Certainly increased reliance on technology. So a leader who need to, I mean, you need not be technical, but the understanding of technology, the trend, how it will impact your business, and I think how you can stay competitive with technology is important. Agility, adaptability, so there's a greater need for that. And again, it's because of the uncertainty and change these days. I think the other thing that I see very different is more collaborative and decentralized leadership. I think the traditional top-down leadership model is less prevalent these days. And again, I see that because of new generation of workforce, right? They want to be part of the decision rather than being told what to do. So there's a lot more decision-making in the team empowerment area. Yeah.
I think I would like to come back to these emerging technologies. We mentioned it, you know, AI, robotics, automation, and all these. I mean, and you are the expert on that because you serve on the board of many tech companies. What impact will these kind of technologies have on leadership, and particularly the way organizations are run in the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm the expert, but because I've been in the tech area for a long time, you know, I'm probably a little bit more cognizant on the trends and things that are happening. I think there's two parts to the impact you're asking. One is on the leadership and on the business itself. I think business, I already touched a little bit upon it, your customer service, predictive analytics, supply chain, and so forth. I think the changes in leadership is shifting from managing tasks to managing technology and algorithm. So you need to have a deeper understanding of these technologies to effectively integrate them into your organization. Also, AI also help leaders to make data-driven decisions because it provides insights and analytics that humans may not be able to uncover, right? And also it does increase efficiency and productivity. Automation helps streamline processes and reduce the time and effort required for repetitive tasks, especially, allowing leaders to focus more on the strategic initiatives. I think the other aspect when you talk about AI is also you help organizations to personalize your product and services, right? And experience for individual customers. So which may require leaders to adopt new approaches to customer engagement, and not forgetting the challenges to the workforce management. So increasing use of automation also will also create challenges for workforce management because jobs may be replaced by machines, especially repetitive manufacturing kind of role, right? How can leaders proactively navigate these changes and provide support to and training to affected employees? Yeah, so I see some of this emerging technologies that's changing the way leadership has to pick up new knowledge. Yeah.
Great. I think one question I have to ask you is obviously women and leadership, women and career. What unique challenges do you see women have or face in leadership positions?
Yeah, I guess I've been lucky in a country that supports women in leadership and that we have unique challenges. I would say, at least in my career, the gender bias is probably less prevalent. We do have many senior leaders in the tech field in Singapore, but sometimes it's also self-imposed bias, I feel, for some women. Yeah, and lack of I think that people talk about old boys network. You don't talk about old girls network, right? So there's seriously, I do think that there's limited access to network and mentorship compared to the other gender, and this also impact the ability to develop. And there's always the work-life balance, right? As a working mother myself, you always have to struggle between your family responsibility versus your work responsibility. But of course, today with caregiving help that we do get here in this region is a lot easier. Yeah, so not easy to be a good, and there are many very good female leaders, but I think time has improved in terms of support, both from your family and outside your family. But otherwise, I would see these are some of the challenges. Yeah.
If you really could change the situation, what single action or what single thing would you like to change, regarding women in leadership? What single most important thing?
I think women supporting women. So we tend to be very critical of ourselves, critical of other women too. And I say we, I'm generalizing, of course. I think we're stand up to provide mentorship, provide the network that you have. And there are many organizations like STARS or International Women's Forum, which I'm also part of, that actually the objective is for women to support women, right, in any aspects. And I'm sure if everybody step up to it, it will certainly help overall for the women.
We are running out of time, so I have a last question, which is a personal question. What is your secret to stay strong and healthy?
I'm not sure, Tony, if you know, I'm a very active person in terms of sports. Yeah, I do many sports. Yeah, used to do a lot of triathlon, marathon, not anymore. I retire from all of that. But I think it's important to have self-care. So even though I retire from all my races, competitiveness or competitive racing, in my earlier when I was much earlier, I think it's important to have your me time for any leaders. And for me, my morning time, my morning exercise time is very important. And sometimes travel also give me the downtime to think, to read, yeah, and to also rejuvenate myself. And having holidays with family and friends to me is equally important. Yeah, so thanks for reminding me to make sure I make time for that.
Okay, great. So time is up, unfortunately. First, I want to thank you very much for these brilliant insights. I think we all learned a lot about leadership, particularly in disruptive times. And I believe also one message is quite clear: expect the unexpected. So Yen, again, I wish you all the best, and I very much look forward to having you again at future STARS events. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
The next webinar is on 17th of May. Ambassador Jorge Toledo will speak on Europe-China relations. Since September 2022, Jorge Toledo is the ambassador of the European Union to China. I hope to see you there. In the meantime, goodbye and take care.